A different type of pencil game. Hi, I'm new to this subreddit and I always wanted to tell this to someone or some place that would actually listen to this. First off, I feel like I have to say this beforehand that this type of game is not the Charlie challenge. It's first off actually real and a little more complicated. Okay, so I got this game from a childhood friend from middle school. Her family comes from Spain, so I thought I might have to add that as well. I need to explain this all in order for it to be completely understood. What you need for the game is the following: a pen or pencil, any will do, a strip of paper that is as thick as about 2 fingers width, a quiet room where people aren't there to bullshit and actually take it seriously, since it will never work if they don't take it seriously. Here are the rules. There can only be up to 6 people in the room, including the person doing the act. Again, only ones who take it seriously. The person doing the task has to sit on my floor in the center of the room. The pen or pencil's pointer has to point it in the opposite direction from you. No one is allowed to touch any of the supplies being used before, during, and after the game besides the person doing the game, which is the player, or else bad luck will happen to not only the person who touched it, but the user playing the game as well. Wrap the paper around the pencil. How you wrap is by making a U shape with the paper and the pencil in the bottom on the U form. Hope I'm explaining this well. Pinch the paper to fit the pencil base, then bend the paper to the side and wrap the remaining paper around it. There should be 2 ends of the paper after you successfully wrapped it to pull for later. Set the pen or pencil down on the ground in front of you. Remember, the pointer side not facing you. Be very careful not to unwrap the paper while doing so. After that, hold your dominant hand over the pencil and hover above it. The player says, lovely ghost, will you play a game with me? Please answer with a yes or no. Hold your hand over the pen or pencil wrapped in the paper for 20 to 30 seconds. If you hear the paper shifting on its own, that's a good sign. Don't touch the pen or pencil wrapped in the paper during this process. Once you've waited, you carefully pick up the paper wrapped pencil or pen and hold onto the end of the wrapped paper. Again, make sure you wrap it correctly so the 2 ends of the paper are the ones you should hold on to. Pull to unwrap it. If the paper is no longer wrapped around the pencil, that means yes, and the game has begun. While playing the game, you can only ask questions with a yes or no answer. If it doesn't come off and stays perfectly wrapped around it, then it means no, and you have to try again. If you don't get a yes after 5 to 10 minutes of playing, then you have to say, lovely ghost, thank you for playing with me. May I leave the game? Please answer with a yes or no. And if they say yes, by having the paper coming off, then you may successfully leave the game. Use the same thing when you want to leave the game after already entering. If they say no when you ask to leave, you have to keep playing, or else bad luck or creepy things will happen to every single person in that room, including the player. Do you get the gist of it? Well, because of this game, I've had many moments along with the people playing the game, so here are a few. Number 1. While sleeping, I can feel the mattress shift and it feels like someone is slowly crawling on top of me, and I feel a heavy presence above me. I never opened my eyes when it happened, and yes, I could move just fine. I've checked. It wasn't sleep paralysis. Number 2. I've had someone loudly whisper my name directly in my ear while sleeping. The only other person in that room was a sibling at the time, and they were in their own bed on the opposite side of the room, dead asleep. Number 3. Multiple doors either slamming shut or slowly opening while there is no draft or windows open in the house. Number 4. Items around the house going missing when I knew exactly where they were, or just a moment earlier I had in my hands and set it down beside me and have it randomly show up in my closet or my desk or the floor near the closet. Number 5. Having a dream where a shadow person comes from behind my closet to my bed and watch me and then stroke my face, and I wake up in cold sweats and the side of my face where it stroked me is icy cold. I had an old mirror behind that closet that my family kept when we moved into an older apartment. That mirror was also the only thing left behind from the previous owners, and I don't have that mirror anymore, though I still get those dreams from time to time. That's just some of the things that happened to me personally. To the people that were in the room when I did the game, I asked them how they were after the fact, a few weeks after, sometimes months even, and most of them said they had random moments where they felt watched, and also had from time to time the same random items disappearance and reappeared scenario along with the door scenario. I haven't played that game since I was 16 or so, and I'm almost 22 now. Every time I ask someone about it, if they are also into the paranormal and if they know anything about this game, they say they never knew about it. So I'm hoping the people of Reddit will know it and help me learn more about it, since doing my own research also didn't help at all. I have more experiences with this, but I don't want to write a whole book in this one post about it. It's long enough, really. If anyone has questions about it, I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you to the people who took their time to read my story. Means a lot, truly. Hope you have a nice day. The Kid in the Basement. This is the follow-up story to my previously shared experience of residual gunshot from suspected suicide. Growing up, my family has been subject to the paranormal in many ways: visual, audio, smelling, and touching. My father was a non-believer till the day he died. Always made a logical reason to the bump or bang. Our basement was a nice, cool place to be, especially in the summer months, as it retained its cooler temperature. For as long as we can remember, a spirit remained down there and was receptive to company of the living. We used to play Monopoly at the dining room table, and we would hear the squeaky stairs, and then we would look at the door as the knob jiggled. Sometimes the door opened, and sometimes just a jiggle, as if some days it had the energy and others not. When my mother would do laundry, she only went to the basement in the company of one of our 2 black Labradors, Duke and Duchess. She hated going down there because she was the very religious one and just hated the feeling of someone behind her. I would go down there and sleep often, as my dad was too cheap to install the AC units, and it was much cooler. I never really felt scared, but I did know I was not alone. Often I would hear the light switch click on and off. I remember my bike was flipped upside down and had the little beads on the spokes that would tinker-tanker as the kid spun a tire slowly. One time, he must have gotten spooked because I got spooked. He spun the tire when I was down there watching TV. I got up and started to leave the basement, thinking not today, and I felt him behind me as if escorting me out. I started to run, and I felt the adrenaline as if my friend was about to take me in a game of tag. My dad was an electrician and installed the metal switches with lights, green and red, indicating current or no current flow. The switches controlled everything from each individual light and the TV. Imagine a circuit breaker, and that's how the electricity was controlled. You could hear these metallic clicks from 100 feet away. After we did some digging, we learned through the library that a kid, Stephen, hung himself as a teenager from severe depression. This was not too often, but not uncommon for patients to be untreated back in the day. It was sometime in 52 or 53 that this happened, if I remember correctly. My hair just stood up as I recall this next bit. In the laundry room, directly behind the washer and dryer was our furnace. Above and just off to the side remained the pulley the young man attached to the joist. This is why my mother hated doing laundry. As soon as the dogs acted funny or raised their hair on their backbone, she was out of there like a bat out of hell. The kid never did anything malicious, but he sure got satisfaction knowing that he got to you. As long as you could close your eyes, let the chills pass through you as you kinda raised your head and cocked it as you want to tell but holding it in. It passed and then you could continue to do what you were doing. I think he liked my mom the most because she never stood her ground, and besides the one time I ran, I usually did too. I think what really gets under my skin was the cat that left no footprints in the winter. Under the Northern Lights. Hey guys, long-time listener, first-time caller. My story takes place back about half a decade or so when I was serving as a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which you sometimes refer us to as Mormons, which is chill with me and I don't really care. Anyway, I spent 2 years of my life in the great state of Alaska, meeting people from all walks of life, performing acts of service, whether that be chopping wood or working at a soup kitchen, and of course, knocking doors, trying to talk to people about Jesus. I have plenty of weird and strange experiences on my mission, whether that be the time my companion, the guy I teach and serve with not a gay thing, and I were in a stairwell in a sketchy neighborhood at night. We both heard the same raspy voice in our left ear saying no, with no one there. The time I lived in a church on an Indian reservation where the locals told us to be in by nightfall, and we heard strange things at night. Or even when an old Japanese man told us he cold-handed the Book of Mormon we gave to him back to us with a note stuck in the middle that says, "I'm sorry, I can't keep meeting with you gentlemen. Something has come up, and be careful, the others are watching." We went back a week or so later to check up on him due to him being older and alone. We peeked through his front window to see his home was absolutely bare, no furniture, nothing on the inside, and the man was a pack rat and his house was a mess. So maybe he was kidnapped by a crazy secret society, I don't know. The full story I'm gonna share with you takes place on January of 2016. I lived in Fairbanks, Alaska, about 200 miles or so south from the Arctic Circle. Life was rough at the time. The sun came up only for a couple hours every day, and when it did, it only stayed on the horizon with it being dark by around 3:30 to 4 p.m. every day. And to add sub-zero temperatures and people not exactly being the kindest given the circumstances, being a missionary was hard with lots of slammed doors and nights eating cup of noodles by a heater. In the area of Fairbanks, there were about 10 to 12 missionaries serving different areas of the city, and like any organization, there has to be leaders to pass down information. We called these missionaries zone leaders. They gave us trainings and relayed info from our mission leaders, and just did the best to keep order amongst 20 or so 18 to 20-year-olds. One of the duties that these leaders performed was go on exchanges with different sets of missionaries, where you would swap the person you would go out and teach with for the day and earn some pointers to be away from a companion you hate, which is an awesome thing, I guess. At the time, our zone leaders were a very dysfunctional pair, and in order to protect their privacy, I guess I'll call them Elder A and Elder B. Male missionaries are addressed as elders. Elder A was a jolly round farm boy, nice as can be, and not a lot going on upstairs, but nothing wrong with that. Elder B was on the service. He was a nice and easygoing athletic guy, but it turns out the man was a certified sociopath. The man is a cop now, so go figure. There was a lot of problems between the two of them as they clashed and fought all the time, and as you know, contention can breed bad things. On to the events in question. I had gone on one of the exchanges with Elder A and Elder B. I went with jolly Elder A, while the young Patrick Bateman, Elder B, went with my companion. I was going to be staying with Elder A in his own town area. They lived in what used to be a barn in the middle of the woods, which had been crudely converted into a duplex, with the elders living in the upstairs apartment. Let me tell you, this place sucked. The heater would go out in the middle of winter in Alaska, so they had to cover the windows with saran wrap and leave the oven open to heat the place. Not to mention, the neighbors below smoked so much weed that if you went to the upstairs apartment for even an hour, your coat would stink of pot for days. So that's where my quarters would be on this sub-zero Arctic night. The day with Elder A was pretty normal. We visited people to teach and we shoveled an old woman's driveway. We then returned to the apartment in the evening and everything went well until we had to go to bed. When you're on a mission, you have to be within sight and sound of your companion, except for bathroom breaks and showers, so we had to share a room. As I was getting in bed, I noticed that Elder A had deadlocked the bedroom door as well as put a chain lock on it, which I thought was strange due to us locking the front door of the apartment as well. When I asked him why he locked the door, he said something like, "Oh, you know," and didn't say anything else. The dude was a strange bird, so I thought nothing of it and went to bed. I was rudely awoken several hours later to Elder A loudly moaning in his sleep. I was quickly distracted by the moans when I noticed that the power was out as the heat was out, and I could see my breath in front of me. The only light in the room was the aurora borealis glowing outside. I suddenly felt a sick dark feeling, like I was afraid, but I wasn't quite sure why. I suddenly realized that I could hear someone walking around in the kitchen, and this was not normal as we were the only ones in the apartment. I thought about getting up and checking it out, but I had this feeling that I needed to stay put in my bed. I could hear whoever or whatever it was moving plates and silverware around and eventually walking around, not sounding like it was doing anything specific, just making noise. It sounded like it was just moving plates from one part of the counter to another, and eventually it started just walking around in circles. I could hear the footsteps coming closer to the door and then moving away from it. It would do this around 3 times by walking close to the door and then walking away from it, and the whole ordeal lasted about 10 minutes. My heart was beating out of my chest and I didn't know what to do. But being the religious person I was, I said a prayer to myself, asking whatever it was to go away. And right when the roaster was finished, it stopped. I'm not sure what caused it, but whatever was moving around causing a ruckus didn't want to stick around anymore. Eventually, I was able to calm down. The power and heat turned on again, and I fell asleep. The next morning, I had decided that it must have been a dream, and that in my state of in-between awake and sleep, my mind was playing tricks on me as I had been exhausted and stressed out, so my restless mind must have been acting up. So I decided to not share it with anyone. That is until 2 to 3 weeks later, when I was hanging out with another set of missionaries who happened to live right by. We were up late swapping scary stories, and I didn't have any good ones to tell, so I decided to tell my story at the zone leader's apartment. As I was telling my story, one of my buddies began to get very pale and quiet. When I finished, he explained that a week or so before I was in that apartment, he had been on exchange with Elder A as well, and that night they had decided to sleep with the door open. My buddy was awoken in the middle of the night, seeing an outline of a man in the doorway or a shadow man, as he wasn't sure. When he asked the shadow man what he was doing there, the figure asked, I'm looking for Elder B, the sociopathic one. Except he used his full name and my buddy said that he wasn't there as Elder B was with my buddy's companion. The figure vanished and from there on out, Elder A and Elder B double locked the bedroom door every night. You're probably wondering as to why Elder B. Well, the man was always doing sketchy stuff. One time my companion and I had come home one evening to our apartment. Something felt off when we walked in and into the living room to see that on our coffee table there was a pentagram made of salt with a doll I had received for Christmas as a gag gift. In the middle, its eyes were darkened out with a Sharpie. My companion and I were shocked to say the least. We broke the pentagram and blessed our apartment, and then everything felt right again. Another weird thing about Elder B was that a video of him surfaced with a group of people we didn't know who were wearing cloaks in a room only lit by candles, walking in a trance and circling around the room. Elder B had gone back home to Arizona when it had surfaced, so no one could question him about it. To add a little fun note to this story, when I had finished my mission, I was telling the story to my father's extended family at our cabin, and when I got to the part where the power had gone out, my little brother got a bloody nose. Probably nothing, but it certainly added to the atmosphere of me retelling of the event. Now, before this event, I certainly believed that there was to be something going on when it comes to the paranormal, and the stories we hear people tell, 99% of them are probably fake, and whether mine's in a 99% or not, it's up to you to decide. Another takeaway was that if these dark spirits are real, and if they indeed are malevolent and want to cause harm per the rules of the universe, there has to be the opposite in all things, and if there is a so-called dark and evil force, there has to be an opposite force of light and good, and that gives me a strange feeling of comfort for some reason. I hope you guys enjoyed my experience, and I do apologize if my writing was bad as I typed this out on Apple Notes. But please feel more than free to use it on a listener's story if the opportunity presents itself.